Hey guys, welcome to the new episode of We're Still Here. I wanted to spend the first few minutes talking about something that happened as a result of Mariana uploaded the last video talking about something that's a bit of a sensitive subject for some people. But it's something that was important for you to talk about, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously, the last episode was about sexual assault, which for me is something that happened to me. And I know it tends to dredge up the worst of the internet, regardless of how political the subject gets or whatever. So we both discussed the possibility of needing to shut comments off the night before. And I said we should go ahead and upload the video and then see what people say.
You gave me permission to leave comments on and to put the video up, and I had no idea if it would be, because most of the comments have been very positive up until,
Well, there was a significant apparent. I mean, I didn't read them because you had turned them off before I went to bed, but there was a significant percentage of negative comments ranging from, outright attacking me to insulting my weight to insulting my looks to insulting the fact that I was a woman to
lots of very upsetting comments that not just would be upsetting for Mariana to see, but would be upsetting for a lot
I don't care.
Right. It would be upsetting for people who are going to see these videos, who are trying to have a place that's, something that's away from anything like that, away from the negativity and away from being harassed. And
especially since the video itself was about PTSD and triggers, if somebody wanted to watch that video in order to, find someone to relate to or understand that they're in the middle of a healing process, seeing those sorts of comments are not helpful at all to them and could potentially hurt them. And that's the exact opposite of what we want to do for a series like this. We didn't shut off the comments to censor anyone or because our poor little hearts couldn't take.
Yeah, we just wanted to avoid that having negative consequences for other people who just, completely innocently were just browsing the comments and would be very upset or even, worse as a result. That's the last thing we want to have happen, and we can't unfortunately sit on that video and just monitor the comments all day.
We're busy.
Well, we are busy, and unfortunately, it was either let people run wild with that, and they were running kind of wild, or turn them off that one video. And I had to make the choice that I thought was right, and it wasn't an attempt to silence anybody. It was just an attempt to make sure that there was less chance of hurting people.
At the end of the day, this video series is about making other people feel better. And comments like that just detract from the conversation, and they muddy up the intention of the video, and they muddy up the message that we're trying to send out.
So it was very important to just have the video speak for itself at the end of the day. I didn't. Last thing I wanted to do was take the whole thing down as a result. So I wanted to leave the video there, but I didn't want to have the extraneous conversation going on.
Because you know where you can reach us ultimately if you actually want to discuss anything with us.
We're not exactly hidden online.
No.
So with that said, have you gotten everything you need to say out? Butts, yeah, that's important too. But yeah, with that said, here's the new episode. This is what makes me happy.
Your mom.
She does. I've always been a huge fan of the work of Genndy Tartakovsky from all across the board. The only one I really haven't checked out is Hotel Transylvania. Admittedly, it doesn't look that appealing to me, although a lot of my friends say it's gorgeous to look at. And it wouldn't surprise me, Gendy's always had an amazing gift for animating. And his new Popeye project looks incredible. But Genndy, on the whole, is flawless, in my opinion. I think the Dexter's Lab, I was huge into that back in the day. Dexter's Lab was probably my favorite cartoon at the time when it was on. And then, obviously, he worked on other projects. I loved the original animated Star Wars Clone Wars series was great. The stuff they managed to do in such a short amount of time was incredible. It was marvelous. It felt like Star Wars somehow more than the prequels did, and I like the prequels. Okay, don't hate me for that. I enjoyed the prequels for what they were, but the shorts were amazing, and they really like opened that world up and made it interesting, and in ways that even the movies couldn't. But as far I like the Clone Wars series that came after it as well, the CGI one. It not quite as much, but it's still good. It's still alright, solid. But my favorite Gendy project is funnily enough, I saw the movie Priest 3D, which is terrible. It's really atrocious, and I expected it to be terrible and atrocious, and it was, which meant it satisfied me. But the opening narration, like the opening prologue, is like an animated sequence done by Gendy, and you can tell it's Gendy, and it's brilliant, and it's the only part of the movie that is great or even good. So if you see Priest, it's worth watching for the opening 5 minutes. I think it's on YouTube. That the opening 5 minutes are, because it's a fantastic piece of art, animation. And but my favorite Gendy project will always be Samurai Jack, and it is my all-time favorite cartoon ever. Samurai Jack, my favorite cartoon. And I don't know specifically what it is. There's lots of different factors that go into it for me. It's not like a lot of other cartoons. It's a very quiet, there's very little dialogue in it. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's about this samurai, obviously, who gets thrown into the future by this demonic force known as Aku, this very evil being, voiced brilliantly by, I'm going to say Marco, because I think that's how you say his name, but some people say Mako. I think it's Marco, though. Voiced brilliantly by him, like, incredibly, one of the best voice acting performances of our times. And it's about this guy, Samurai Jack, who gets thrown into the future. And it's a point in time where Aku has taken over the world, and it's all his. Like, good has lost at this point. Good has been defeated, like, categorically. There's no point in fighting because Aku just rules the world. This is like the bad end of a story. But Jack is in this situation, and he's determined to go back to the past and prevent that from happening. And that's sort of the running story of the show, is that he, in every episode, or most of the time, he's trying to find a way back home and back to his time. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend it above anything else. It's my favorite cartoon, like I said, but it's the artwork is gorgeous. It's got a very unique style. And like I said, there's very little dialogue, and I've always been a big fan of stories that are told without dialogue. I've always been a big fan of visual stories. I'm not very good at doing that myself. I'm not an artist. I'm not really somebody who can tell a story, just with, images. But I'm a huge fan of that sort of thing. I love it, and Samurai Jack does it possibly better than anything else that I've ever seen. There are episodes that it's like a 22-minute show, like it's a half an hour time block, but they sometimes would have like maybe 2-3 lines of dialogue, and it's fantastic. It uses its visual medium better than a lot of cartoons that are like done for adults. Like it won the Emmy Award. I believe it's the Emmy Award over The Simpsons, and it was like the first time in ages that had happened, and that was unheard of. And it was Samurai Jack, and it was kind of the underdog, and it won, and it's like totally deserved, because the show was obviously a labor of love for everybody involved. But one of the other reasons I love it, not just, I mean, it's very evocative of like the work of Frank Miller without being too obnoxious, because Frank Miller's work can be a bit abrasive. It harkens back to, because Gendy's a huge Star Wars fan, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm not going to say that I'm like extremely knowledgeable in it, but I love the spirit of Star Wars, and I love the world of Star Wars, and it feels very much like a love letter to Star Wars at times, and that helps a lot for me. But Samurai Jack himself, especially these days, is kind of my biggest hero. He's kind of one of the characters I look up to the most. I'm a big fan of. There are certain characters I consider my heroes. Like the crew of Star Trek: The Next Generation are my heroes from my like early teenage years. Those are the people who, if I was ever in a bad situation, I'd be like, if only the Star Trek Enterprise crew from TNG were here, they'd know what to do, or at least they would know eventually what to do after messing with the holodeck protocols and getting everyone in trouble. But Samurai Jack is definitely from I'd say my early to late, well, from my early 20s to now is probably one of my biggest heroes, because as I described earlier, he's a guy who is in a situation, is in the ultimate hopeless situation. Like everything's gone bad, everything's gone to crap at this point in time. This world, like the whole planet is essentially a lost cause, and Jack would have every reason to give up, and he has no possible means of defeating Aku in this situation. His only hope is to go back to where everything started, which is, as far as he knows, impossible. But he keeps fighting. He keeps trying, he keeps going, he keeps moving forward. And, nothing deters him from that path. And one of the things I really love about him is that, to a fault, he will always do the right thing. And I love characters like that. I always talk about Yugi being my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh character, because he's the kind of guy who will always be there for his friends, even at the expense of his own, well-being sometimes. But, he will always do the selfless thing. And Samurai Jack is very similar. He always does the thing that will benefit others before pursuing his own quest. And that's incredible to me. That's something that, especially on the scale of Jack's story, where he's literally trying to save the world. And some people might say it's a huge character flaw of his, and yeah, it is. It is something that initially it's very, you could say, short-sighted, but he will, even if he knows that his ultimate goal is to go back in time and prevent everything that is currently happening from happening in the first place, that doesn't mean that those things are irrelevant and that the things that are happening to people in this timeline don't matter. He goes out of his way to help those in need, even though his quest should technically supersede whatever issue they're going through. He will always go out of his way for other people who need it, if they really obviously need help, and if he can help them. And I love that about Jack. I love Jack. He's an incredible character, and he's a great hero, a great protagonist, and he's voiced by what's his name? Phil Lamar. I can't believe I forgot that. I'm an idiot. He's voiced by... Oh, it's raining. I hope you can't hear that too loud. It doesn't happen very often here in LA. He's voiced by Phil Lamar, and I got the blessing of meeting him recently at a convention called Ichiban Con. My guest handler Ella arranged it so that Phil Lamar would come meet me at my table, and I'd been a fan of Samurai Jack, and still am, for almost a decade, and probably just over a decade. And getting to talk to the guy behind that character was a huge honor. I only got to have like a brief conversation with him, and I told him, you're my hero, and you've done so much for me without even realizing it, and I wish you knew. And he was a bit, I guess he was thrown off just because it was like, I don't think he was expecting me to gush as much as I did. And, I don't like doing the gushing thing, because at the end of the day, it makes people feel kind of self-conscious. I know that, but I really wanted to tell Phil Lamar that, he was a hero to me, not just as a professional voice actor, which obviously I'm trying to pursue, but as somebody who's imbued life into a character that means the world to me. And these characters do mean the world to a lot of people, They, regardless of whether they're real or not, they affect our lives just as real people do. And they can be a part of our existence. Not in a literal sense, but definitely they influence it. And I think Phil Lamar did a great job. As few lines as he usually had per episode, he still managed to create this character that was extremely noble and heroic, and will always be my hero. So that's why I love Samurai Jack. And if you haven't seen it, like I said, please do check it out. It's phenomenal. You've got some episodes on Netflix for streaming, but not the whole thing. But the whole thing is brilliant. See it if you see it in stores, buy it. It's the best cartoon. It will always be my favorite cartoon until something amazing supersedes it somehow. But yeah, I love Samurai Jack. It is really pouring down. I expect you can hear that in the background of the video, so I do apologize for any noise. The clouds are so dark. It was raining yesterday, but not nearly this bad. That's crazy. Anyway, the video. I wanted to talk about something that happened to me. It's kind of a pivotal moment in realizing how far gone I was in my depression, and it's something that is still an issue for me. It's something that I've had to deal with on multiple occasions, just because of how commonplace the situation can be. I know this is going to sound like I'm kind of privileged. I don't know. I'm so sorry if that rain is extremely loud. I went to Disneyland. I know, awful, right? I went to Disneyland last year at some point. I believe it was I think it was September time, maybe just before that. We went to Disneyland, and I was with friends, and I was with my wife, Mariana. And I went knowing that I wasn't doing so good. I went knowing that something was off. Something was definitely going on with me that shouldn't be happening, and that was negatively affecting me a great deal, and was going to probably hurt me in the long run more than I realized. But I went anyway because I thought maybe it would cheer me up. And sometimes when you're depressed but you don't fully comprehend what that means, you think you can just cheer yourself up with one or two different activities, or just getting out of the house, and it can help. But in my situation, I wasn't ready for that, I don't think, or at least that day I certainly wasn't. And Disneyland to me is, and I'm sure to any of you that have gone, is a, as they say, a magical place. They call it like the happiest place on earth. And I've always enjoyed it. I've always loved it. I've always had a good time there, to the point of, not wanting to leave. This time, however, as soon as I got there, I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want this. This isn't good. This is a bad thing. I'm not going to enjoy this. I don't want to be here. There's too many people. Why are we doing this? Can I leave? I want to leave. Rather than just not enjoying myself, I felt nothing. I felt literally nothing. I felt like I was dead on the inside. I felt worse than that in a way. I felt paralyzed. I felt like, I was in my own body, but I couldn't do anything. And I felt like I was just watching somebody else operate me, and I was just like banging on the door trying to get out, because it was like being in a prison. And I kind of had a bit of a breakdown while I was there. And that's the worst feeling. I want to talk about like having a breakdown, especially in a public area like that. And it's been something I've wanted to talk about for the last several weeks, but I didn't know when it would be appropriate. And I guess it's never appropriate to really just bring that up, but it's something that definitely affected me and still affects me occasionally. I had kind of a breakdown. I don't want to call it a nervous breakdown, because that's obviously a much more significant situation, but I was crying. I could barely move. I was like, I fell on my knees at one point and like was just like, I need to not be here, but I didn't want to ruin it for everybody else. And the worst thing is that I was with people who were like celebrating someone's birthday. I think that was the day, and I felt like a real heel. I felt like, wow, I'm a jerk for feeling this way. And then when I was on the one particular moment stands out. I was on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, which is is one of my favorites. I love that ride because it's so relaxing, and the imagery is great, and the animatronics are fantastic, and it's just it's part of Disneyland history. It's fantastic. I don't really care for the movies that much, but the ride is great. And I was on that ride, and I just was crying the whole time. Like, I had tears coming down my face. I was just like, this is awful. This is the worst experience. I just want to... There are times when I just want to do stuff to myself that, I wasn't having a good time. And I remember in that moment thinking, this is my lowest point. This is the worst point in my whole life. Even though I've been in worse situations, I'm at Disneyland, for God's sake. I've been in worse predicaments. I've been in life-threatening situations occasionally, like not like a war or anything, but I've been in situations where I could have died and I got through it. It wasn't that bad. And here I was feeling worse than I'd ever had done. And that ultimately wasn't my lowest point, as it would turn out, but it felt like it, and it felt like, I may as well be dead. Because if you can't enjoy Disneyland, what's the point? I don't know. It was not a good experience, and I wish I had some advice to give on how to deal with that, because that's ultimately what I want to do with these videos, but I didn't deal with it well. What I would say, having been back to Disneyland once or twice since then and not having nearly as bad a time, I've struggled to enjoy it, but especially with the memory. But I have been back there, and I have been able to enjoy being there. When it happens, if it happens, and you're in public, it's the worst, and it feels like, it feels magnified to a great extent. If you're having some sort of breakdown or a panic attack, it's the worst feeling when you're on your own, and it's even worse when there are people just like surrounding you. You feel like, the walls are closing in, the people are just staring, you feel very on display, and you're letting something out from within you that you don't even like acknowledging yourself, and now everybody gets to see it. But in that situation, just know, and if you're currently experiencing depression or anxiety or anything, like trauma, anything like that, just make your friends, if you're going with people, make your friends aware of it. Make your friends aware that if something does affect you that way, you might need to take a moment, or you might even need to go away, or have somebody take you somewhere. Probably best to have somebody take you, just because you don't want to be on your own in that situation. Just make sure everybody is aware of that, and make sure that they're completely comfortable knowing that, because you don't want to be with somebody who just thinks you're getting a bit upset. You want to be with somebody who understands the situation, and make sure. I don't know if you can hear that, but now there's a truck backing up. So there's all kinds of background noise in this one. It's a great atmosphere. Sorry about that. But it's something that you definitely need to make people aware of, even in your day-to-day life. If you're going somewhere in public and you're going somewhere that you're going to have problems with, like I always struggle with going to parties. Parties are a big problem for me. I don't enjoy parties in general, but especially like when the music's super loud and there's people like wall to wall, and that happens a lot because I go to conventions and stuff, and that's really difficult for me to deal with. And I do these panels where there's hundreds of people staring at me, and sometimes I say, this is difficult for me. I'm having to really force myself to stand up here and talk to you, because I can't deal with that very well, and I've had to really train myself to do that. But it can be, even in a small group of people, it can be kind of overwhelming. But make sure somebody's aware of it, and make sure that you know your limits. Don't force yourself because you feel obligated to. Don't push yourself too hard or too far. I think I should have been more aware of, how I was doing that day, and I should have been more careful. I think I could have avoided that if I just felt like if I didn't do it, I was letting my wife down, I was letting my friends down, I was letting everybody down. I didn't think about me. I was the last thing in my mind that day, and that's not good. You have to think about yourself when you're going through this. You have to take care of yourself. Like when you're sick, when you have the flu, when you have a cold, when you have any kind of illness, you have to think about yourself. You have to take care of yourself. And there's nothing wrong about that. There's nothing selfish about that. Don't think of yourself like you're selfish. You're not selfish. You're trying to help yourself. You're trying to fix yourself. You're trying to get better. And that's good. It's good if you need to do that, if you need to take whatever time you need to cope with these things. You're not putting people out of their way. You're not being an inconvenience. You're recovering. You're recovering from this awful thing that's happened. And you need that. So don't ever feel like you're a burden because of that. You're not a burden. You're not anything like that. You're not anyone's problem. The depression is your problem. It's not anybody else's. They can help. Obviously, that people will try and help you, and that's good. But This depression is something you need to overcome beyond anything. So don't ever be like, well, I don't think I can do this, but if I don't do it, people will be kind of upset at me, because trust me, it's not worth it. You are worth whatever it takes to fix what's wrong. You are worth the time it takes to heal. Like I've said before, you're not worthless. You are worth just as much as anybody else. Everybody has worth. And if you need, and whatever you need to be the person you are or you used to be before the depression hit, take the time to have that. Take the necessary precautions to make sure that you don't get pushed further down, that you don't get more overwhelmed by what you're going through. It's something that it's difficult to manage as well, especially if you're in a relationship. It's something that affects both of you almost as it affects your partner just as much almost as it affects you sometimes. So it can be hard to be like, well, I need to do this to deal with what I'm going through, because you think, well, I'm just putting you through this as well. I feel like I'm putting Mariana through the shit that I'm going through sometimes. And that's, and I don't know. I think ultimately that's something that both of you know going in, that, if there's bad, you have to deal with the bad together. And friendship is the same. If there's rocky territory, you have to go over it together. You have to weather the storm, which is appropriate because of the rain. I did that intentionally. No, I didn't. I will say, like I said, I was at my lowest point at Disneyland, which is not fun to think about. But knowing that I had that moment on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, I've kind of tried to. I've always said, turn this stuff into something constructive. Channel these feelings, this stuff. Try and turn it into something that can help you and that you can build off of. And when I went on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride and I had that, I was crying and I wanted to die. Honestly, I decided, I think a few months later, that if I'm able to get through the year, if I'm able to, toward the end of this year, if I'm still around, and I will be still around. I don't want to say if, I will be still around. I'm gonna, I have the tattoo for spaghetti. I'm gonna get another tattoo, and it's gonna say "Dead men tell no tales." And you might laugh at that, but what it took on a different meaning to me. Obviously the voice says that on the ride, "Dead men tell no tales," and it's supposed to be like, I guess, like some sort of pirate threat, like, oh, you won't get to tell your story because I'll kill you. But in my head, it took on a different meaning. It was like, if you give up now, you won't be able to tell any stories or, affect people the way you have been. Because at the end of the day, I'm very proud of the things I've done creatively, and I don't want that to stop just because depression beat me, Because that would be what it was. It would be depression defeating me. It would be me giving in. And I don't want that to happen. Because, one day I'll die, it happens in natural causes. But I want to have told a few good stories in my time. And that's why that means something different to me now, the whole "dead men tell no tales" phrase. Because it reminds me that you shouldn't give up. It's weird, I know, but that's what I'd like to have as my next tattoo, is "Dead men tell no tales," just so I can look at it and be like, I'm still around, I'm still kicking, I'm still telling stories. So yeah, I hope that helped. And I'm sorry about the rain, but you'll get through this. I know I keep saying stuff like that, but I don't want you to think like I've stopped thinking about that. You guys are dealing with stuff, even if it's less or more significant than what I'm going through, which it isn't less. Trust me, everybody has problems, and they just vary in what they are, not necessarily how bad they are. So whatever you're going through, I want you to know you'll be okay, and just don't whatever you do, don't give up. Don't give up, because you can make it through this. Don't stumble, right before you get to the finish line. Don't let the exhaustion, don't let yourself get pulled down by depression and don't let it ruin things for you, because that's what it'll do if you listen to it and if you give into it. It'll ruin things. You don't ruin anything. It will ruin things for you. So don't let it. You'll be okay. You're going to do fine. That's the end of another episode of We're Still Here, and thank you for tuning in. I'm doing Comic-Con in Alabama this weekend, so I apologize if I don't have time to record one. I'll do my best to record one over the weekend or on Monday and get it to you guys next week. I hope you're doing okay. I really do. And I want to say I went to this convention. I mentioned it in a previous one. I went to this convention, and my friend Emily Kringle, who was there as a staff member, she intentionally went out of her way to be my guest handler because she was aware of what I was going through, and she really made sure I was taken care of and that I was safe and that I was okay, and that it could have been a really bad weekend for me, but she made sure that it was all right, and she made sure I was all right. So I want to say thank you, Emily, and I love you for what you did. You're one of my best friends, and you've always been a... What's up, Meatball? Oh, is it mozzarella? Come here, cat. What's that? Don't know if you guys could hear that. But she's always been an incredible friend, and I barely see her, but she's always looked out for me. And this weekend she was a lifesaver, so I want to say thank you, Emily. And I want to say thank you to everybody who came up to me and thanked me for these videos. And I want to say thank you so much for talking to me about them and for telling me, if you were going through something, because that's you're so brave. You're so brave for even acknowledging it publicly. I was very honored to hear from you guys, and I wish I had your courage sometimes. I don't know. It's easier to talk to a camera and then just upload a video than it is to talk to another person face to face. So I admire your bravery and your courage, and I really hope that things pick up for you guys. And it sounds like for the most part things were going better than they were, but there are people who aren't going through a good time right now, and I want you to know that it will get better. Things will turn around. Might not be immediate, but they will turn. Don't give up on yourself just because things are bad. Because, just because the clouds are in front of the sun, it doesn't mean then the sun isn't there, It'll come back. And I love you guys. So thank you. And have a good day. Even if it is bloody raining, wherever you are. It's really bad here. Alright, take care. If you wish to reach me, you can find me at Yu-Gi-Oh! TAS on Twitter. And for all my other content, please visit team4star.com/LittleKuriboh. I hope you have a great day.